Well. Welcome to Mornings with Marvel, where authenticity lives and thrives to create a space of growth, healing, and joy. I am your host, Andrea Lawful Sanders, and each day we will cover the topics that are informative and engaging while learning from each other. Good morning to each and every one of you. It is Friday, November 21st, 2025. It is 44 degrees and clouded outside, and it's another day in paradise. I am trying to look up my morning motivation for all of you because there's so much that we want to discuss today. And yes, Marva is in another one of her moo I call them my moo but it's really a caftan. Just checking in to see how all of you were doing last night before I retired for the night. I asked you all to answer an unofficial poll for me. And I just tabulated what the answers were. And we'll talk about that a little bit at 6:45. We will have Councilmember Anthony Phillips on, to talk about what happened in City Council. And a lot happened in City Council. So we're going to have to get to discuss that with him for half an hour today. And then we'll cover some of the news, and maybe we will be able to have an after party. Okay. So the morning motivation was not written by me. It was written by an article several years ago that was shared to me by my friend Stacy the Shield, to the group of us. And so this one, gem number 4, there were like 12 gems about how you can move through life. Resolve to be habitually generous. Success is not something you pursue, it is something you attract by what you become. The more you give of yourself, the more favors you attract from others. People have a deep-rooted drive to give back, so resolve to search for ways to contribute to others. Here's an interesting aphorism. Live life above the line. If the line represents others' expectations of you, consistently surpass those expectations. You'll develop what author Ken Blanchard called raving fans, people who become walking billboards for you. Oh my God. So let me tell you how God works. One Thursday afternoon, my father bought a bag of quarters for us to take a few so we could use them for tolls. I took 8 quarters, and as I was walking away, my sister said, "Take $5 worth, my girl." So I did, wondering where I would need to use this many of them. Well, parking at a hotel for an event later on that week was a beast when I got home. With 800 plus women in attendance, and after sitting in a logjam, going nowhere for 30 minutes, I found a space 1 block away, used my app to park, and began walking to the hotel. I saw 2 sisters up ahead paying for their own parking, and just as I wished them a good morning and was walking by, the one sister stopped me to ask how did I pay for my parking because the machine was not taking her card. I told her, but she did not have the app, and the only other thing the machine took was, you guessed it, quarters. She looked at me in astonishment when the machine said $7.50, and I said a prayer and began feeding the machine all the quarters my daddy gave me, plus $2.25 extra in the bottom of my pocketbook. The last quarter she had. Ha! She was so happy and offered to pay me back. I told her no and kept walking. She found me at the event and offered to repay me again. Again, I declined. As I spoke with a dear friend, she walked up and asked if I had a card. I gave her my information, but reiterated yet again it was not necessary to be reimbursed by her. I was just grateful that I had the means to help her with the right currency because the machine would not accept a card. Moral of the story: don't question why things happen the way they do. There are things we cannot always understand in the moment, but you will understand it at some point. Be kind, even if others aren't. That was such a great story. Such a great story. In that moment, we were visiting my father. We were getting ready to head home, and he just handed up all these quarters. I'm like, what am I going to do with all this? I'm not going to a laundromat. I'm not. And that woman needed it 2 days later, 3 days later. So even though things don't always feel like it's supposed to in the moment, and you can't understand why things are happening the way they do, there's always a reason. Everything in our life happens just the way it's supposed to be, the good, the bad, the indifferent, the ugly, because it's all a part of our life path that gets us to exactly where we're supposed to be, right? And even when we make mistakes, as we often do, sometimes these things happen. Let me open up the good morning. Let me open up the chat. Good morning to all of you. I see you. Oh my goodness, hold on. Ooh, you all are in here. Dennis! Morning, my darling. You see me losing my voice though? I have been fighting this uh pain in my throat. I have my glands are swollen and I'm trying. Lord have mercy. So I'm, over here. Good morning. I see you all. Good morning, my darlings. Bobby Carr. Uh Hold on one second, y'all. Let me see if I can get this. Oh, as you can tell, I'm tired. It's been a week, child. My father wore me out. Good morning, Monica Adams. Good morning. Viola says, "A queen." Yes, I'm in my Wakandan thing again. Thank you, Dr. Jana. Love you all so much. So last night, after I left an event, because I was just so exhausted, I came home and said, let me do this thing. And let me tell you why. This was in the news last night, and I do not see it in my lineup of news because there's so many other things going on. Wow, my throat is giving me a hard time. City Council member Isaiah Thomas introduced a thing that is attempting once again to change city law to allow members to keep their jobs while running for higher office, an effort that has already failed 3 times in the last 20 years. Maybe the fourth time is a charm. This attempt is a little different. A council committee on Wednesday advanced the legislation to change the 70-year-old resign to run rule that requires city officials, office holders, to leave their jobs while campaigning for another office. So when Councilmember Anthony Phillips come on, we're going to dig into it a little deeper, but I am going to read the responses that I got from those of you that responded to the unofficial thing that I did. So, hold on, change is coming. All right, let me pull it up. Just bear with me. And if you, why am I feeling like this? This is crazy. I don't feel sick. My throat is ridiculous in these Wakandan streets. Your president is threatening to execute people. That's a whole nother scenario. All right. Unofficial survey, but I would appreciate your genuine responses. I will speak of the results in the morning, which is today. Do you think someone who is currently in a political office should be able to stay in that position while running for another one? And do you think they should resign from one position if they choose to run for another? Yes or no? Thank you kindly. Karen A. Robinson, who has been in politics all the way up to Reagan. She's been around for a while. She said tax dollars are to compensate elected officials for their work. Tax dollars, in my humble opinion, should not be used to underwrite a sitting official's run for a different office. Bonnie Davis said they should be able to stay in their current position while running for another. Resign to run is wrong. Sharon Carter says, I feel if someone is seeking another position, public office, they should resign from their current position. It's not about being able to multitask. It's about more focus, loyalty, dedication, and commitment to the job. If their heart, passion, and interest are leaning towards the desired position, the current position gets shortchanged. Sounds like pursuing a new mate while staying with the current one. Bonnie, that's funny. Hold on. April McBride McGlone said, hell to the no. They should not stay. Roxy Fab said no. They should not stay. Naomi said they should be able to keep their current job until and unless they get the new one. Iveta Chambliss says, yes, they should resign at the city-state level. Shakila says, you should not have to resign to run for office. However, I also think there should be parameters. If you are running and losing every year, then that's a problem and tells me you don't want to be in your job. And if I remember correctly, that's not just for running for office. Isaiah Thomas had to resign from his 9-to-5 city job to run for city council and didn't win the first time. I don't think that should be the case. Laverne says, no, resigning means you have the job. Campaigning for the job does not. So I have to ask you all this. Does it feel right to campaign for another job while trying to do the job you currently have? You're on taxpayers' time and dime, right? So when are you actually campaigning for the job? You're always campaigning for the job, as you can tell for those of you who have run for office before. It's almost like a 24/7 thing, right? Samia says no, because it's no different than anyone else applying for another position at their current job. Just because you apply doesn't mean you're going to get the job. So she believes they shouldn't have to resign. Winetta says, yes, resigning will be the best thing to do. Winetta, I'm sorry. Yes, will be the best thing to do. Stay focused on one thing at a time. Marguerite Boyd Faison says, no, I don't think they should resign. A leader worth his or her salt has a team to handle the day-to-day and know when the leader's input is warranted. Why give up a job before you have another? I find that comment interesting, and I'll tell you why in a little. Natasha Warner says, if this is the case, Kamala would have had to step down as VP to run for president. No, in my opinion, you shouldn't have to step down while campaigning for another office. Teresa Bonner says, no, I see a lot of the answers are about focusing one or the other. We multitask all the time, and some of us run through multiple jobs, careers at once. I believe that the individual is the judge of what they can handle and can't. Lynn Fields Harris says, yes, the individual should choose, and if serious, then resign and run. Also, individuals who are serial candidates are not considered serious either, in my humble opinion. Viola Richburg Ray says, remember how many city council people had to resign to run for mayor, and they lost a lot of qualified people. So this council is really relatively new as a direct result of that. Paul DeSeco says they should have to resign. How are you doing the job you were elected to perform if a considerable amount of your time is spent campaigning for another? That's the part that I was asking. David says at the state level, no. However, at the local level, yes. I believe at the local level, they need all attention in what's going on because the body is small but very powerful. At the state level, not so much because there are two chambers, thus diluting any massive influence. Just my 2 cents. Rachel McLeod said, yes, otherwise good candidates are more hesitant to seek another office. Jasenia says, no, I think it's a conflict of interest. They should not stay in office if they're running for another office. Amy Martin says, I can't answer yes or no. My answer would be if they can still perform the duties that they were voted into office for while running for another position, then I'm not opposed to it. So she was one of the maybes. If they can't, then they should quit before they start a new campaign for a new office. Ryan Florek says, yes, I hate seeing the city lose great public servants because they're looking to run for higher office. Just from the 2023 municipal elections alone, we lost 5 council members and city controller from this rule. Tamika Johnson says, there are so many points of view here that I agree with. I'm conflicted, but ultimately think that if you're running for another office, you should focus on that alone and resign from your current seat. Keisha Hudson Brooks said, yes, you should be able to stay in your current political role and run for another. I asked her, can you tell me why, please? And she says, Andrea, leaving your position to run is financially ruinous. And that means, 1, those who resign to do so are not usually diverse, which limits Black and brown candidates. And 2, if you do resign to run, that means you're being backed by special interests and groups that have IOUs you'll have to pay off if you get in office. Ooh, wow. Wait. Neil Deegan says, so Keisha and Neil are 2 people that I respect their opinions highly, truly, because I know them both for a while. Neil Deegan says, I think resign to run shortchanges the voters. Think about the 2023 mayor's race. We lost decades of governing experience when good folks with good ideas and a willingness to put themselves forth. Only one could win, and the rest of that experience was lost. Governing is a skill like any other. One improves with time and experience. It would be a benefit to the city to elect someone with experience governing at the city level as governor, U.S. senator, or the Congress, but it's unlikely to happen as long as resign to run is on the books. Y'all hearing this? Sandra Ali said they should quit and do their job. Nana P said yes, they should resign. Viola Richburg says yes. Yatande says no, they should not stay in office. If she's here this morning, I'll find out. Eric Nixon says yes, they should resign from their position. If they choose to run for another office. Sharon Wright says they should resign, in my opinion. You can't run a campaign and still concentrate on the they should resign, in my opinion, she says. You can't run a campaign and still concentrate on the issues at hand in your current position without compromising something. Marguerite Sexton said, nope. Latrice says, no, it is a prolonged job interview, and I wouldn't resign from my job to apply for another job. And the last one, but the spiciest, Mr. Man Frisbee. My answer has always been yes. If you are not taking that leap of faith and going full throttle to be elected, why should the voters? Taking that leap impresses me as a voter. I think it's the reason nobody took Shaka Fatah seriously when he ran for mayor. If he lost, no big deal. Still had a job. So, Councilmember Phillips will be on in about 4 minutes. We'll talk about that some more. What do you think? You've given me. So let me tell you, there are 14. Yes, they should keep their jobs while campaigning for another office. 2 maybes, and 18. No, they should. Yes, they should resign if they decide that they want to run for another office. So it's almost split evenly. 14 people say they should be able to stay in their job while campaigning for another job. 17 people said hell to the no. They need to go do something else. And they should leave the office if they go to run for another office. And 2 people are maybes, right? Good morning. Laverne says, is it overwhelming? Are they allowed time off? That wouldn't make sense because they're in a public office being paid by taxpayers' dollars. If you're taking time off and still getting paid with taxpayers' dollars to run for another office, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Good morning, Shaquilla. Good morning, Alexandra. So the question on the table was, if you're running for office, City Council, a bill sponsored by Councilmember Isaiah Thomas is trying to change the Home Rule Charter. It has been forwarded out of committee that if you're running for a public office, elected office, while holding one elected office, you should not have to quit that job, right? Sharon Wright says, listening to the variety of answers, I'm open to hearing more about the yes and maybe conversations. I understand the points that were made, right? You see, there's some people that abuse it. I can think of a few people who kept running. They wanted a higher position and a higher position. They got it up and they just kept running and running and running. And there are people who, let me tell you why this can cause a problem sometimes. There are people who now is running for the seat that they're trying to move out of to get into a higher position, and they block those people because they say, if I don't win this spot, I still want to keep my position. So this one particular person that I'm thinking of kept running for higher seats, and would go into court and petition to block the petitions that were signed by the other people who were running against them. And so people are frustrated, which is why I think should they put this in the Home Rule Charter again for another election for this to have to change, people are going to say no. They're going to say no, in my humble opinion. Now, things could shift and change, but you have to weed out the ones. If you want to be able to stay into office while running for another office, you have to weed out the ones that are serial runners and making it difficult for other people, to be there. Andrea says, I think they can keep their job while campaigning for another, and there should be a term limit for the office they hold on to. Is that part of the conversation or no? Nope, not a part of the conversation, as far as I understand. But when Councilmember Phillips get on, we'll be able to talk about it. Y'all are not praying for my voice. If this continues, I'm not going to have a voice by Monday. It's insane. And Thursday is Thanksgiving. What are you all doing to prepare for the holidays? Did you have Friendsgiving? Are you having dinner at your house? Are you hosting? I'm hosting, but not at my house. So my son is extremely excited. I'm going to his house and I'm cooking oxtails, and we're doing curry chicken and rice and peas and roasted ham. Baked ham, roasted beef, and then we're going to have regular fried fish to people who would want it, and chicken wings for another folks who may want it. And we have a turkey. Some folks eat turkey, some folks do not. I do not. We'll have mac and cheese and collard greens and rice and peas and cabbage, and then we'll have escovitch, which is the one with the head on. And a lot of the people, some of the people come in and have, don't eat fish with head, but the Jamaicans, they will. So we'll have escovitch, and and so we'll just pull, everybody's going to pull together. I'm cooking most of that, and then we'll just go from there, right? And I think there's going to be some yams, so it's a Jamaican American fusion Thanksgiving dinner. My son is super duper excited because he said he's had to cook every year for years, and because I would spend Thanksgiving with my parents. Not this time. We just saw Daddy. So good morning, Debbie. Good morning, my darling. Good morning. So I'm waiting for Councilmember Phillips to get on so we can have the discussion. Sharon says, my brother and I always go to share with my 90-year-old aunt in New York. She's my dad's last surviving sibling. Yeah, and as folks start to get older, you tend to go spend time with them for the holidays versus, the younger folks. So here we are. Let me cover a little bit of news while I'm waiting for Councilmember Phillips, because this is a good conversation to have. And as you can also, I'm not sure how many of you have been following the decision that the mayor made to legal counsel to remove the DEI through a process. And there he is. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Hold on. Good morning, Councilmember Phillips.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good morning. Good morning.
I love the painting behind you, though. That's nice.
It's getting more challenging to get on because I have this 5-year-old now. So
wearing you out, isn't it?
Oh my gosh! So I'm making my adjustments. I apologize for being late.
No worries. We will always create space for you. And remember, this is my show, so if you come on at 8:30, we'll be here for you. Don't worry.
Okay. But yes.
So there's a lot for us to discuss today. Are you awake enough for us to have it?
I am. So much to discuss. I don't even know where to begin. Well, let me just begin by well, I don't know where to begin. Actually, let me start.
All right, so let me just introduce you to the folks who may have never seen you before. This is This is Dr. Anthony Phillips, who is a city council member in our city council in Philadelphia. He's one of 17 members. He's in District 9, so he covers Area 9, and and that's the northwestern part of the city, some parts of the northwestern part of the city. And so he has agreed to come on with me at least 2 Fridays a month so we can talk about what's happening in city council. After the council session, sometimes people have questions, and so he's been willing to come on and have the dialogue. Now, Councilmember Phillips, there's a lot going on in city council. There's a legislation that Isaiah Thomas put forth. I did an unofficial poll last night on my social media page. 14 people said yes, they should be able to stay in office while running for another office. There were 2 maybes, and 18 people says hell to the no. So but
wait, 14 people, 9 people said okay.
No, 14 people said yes, they should be able to stay in office while running for another office.
Okay.
2 people said maybe because they were kind of, on the things, and 18 people says hell to the no, to the no.
Oh my God.
But it's almost evenly split down the middle is what I'm trying to say, which is interesting.
Let me tell you why, one of the reasons why Councilman Thomas put this together is because he noticed that in the state of Pennsylvania, all of the state elected officials are able to not resign their official office and run for any office. Pretty much, I think they could even run for a state office without resigning. So if there was he believed that there was a really qualified candidate in Philadelphia City Council, they would have to make a decision on, a little bit more riskier than any other elected official that might be in the federal government, might be in the state government.
Mm-hmm.
And that he believed was preventing some, qualified city council members from making a decision. to actually run for office.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, that was the rationale behind it. So to give, qualified council members an opportunity to run without the idea of being fearful of potentially losing what they already are enjoying, what they already enjoy doing, right, and so forth. But I get the debate on both sides, and we understand. I heard years ago that one of the reasons why, well, I heard that from someone that so I've heard from someone recently that they created this years and years ago is because they was concerned that city council members would run against state officials or federal officials. So this was a blockage that was already
Yeah.
like done as like some sort of like agreement
Mm.
compromise, per se. And it had nothing to do with some sort of ethics or whatever that might be. So to be honest with you, I just love being, you know, love to have an opportunity to serve on city council. It's a service opportunity. I love service, and I want to do it well every single day. So for me, I can't even think about the next promotion. But it's hard for me to, if another council member really wants to see this as a ballot question for voters to make a decision on, like, hey, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
you can't, I'm glad I don't really have to. I mean, I don't really have to make the decision now. Folks didn't really make a decision at the
Yeah, because the
and they
people of the city
rejected it
have to vote
before.
for it,
You
right?
know what I mean? They rejected it before.
Oh, they
So
rejected it 3 other times. So, and I
yeah, right,
think,
right.
and I think, so I think what's going to happen is there has to be a cogent, co- coherent conversation around this. Now, there are 2 things that happened in 2023. One was 4 or 5 people decided they want to run for mayor. And in order for
Mhm.
them to run for mayor, they had to quit their city council seats. And people were saying they lost years of experience as a direct result of that because only one person could win. On the flip side of that, though, people were saying, look, y'all have been in this seat since Jesus was a boy. It's time for new people to come in and to learn. So therein, your class came in and you're learning, and we have new blood on city council that makes life a little bit more. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I absolutely. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I mean, we look at we have a new blood on city council, Cassie Lozada. I mean, and she's been, more fiery, no disrespect than to people before her, Maria, who was the council member, but she's been a lot more fiery and stronger, right, as a council member in that district, than Maria was. I mean, that
Mhm.
isn't. I just think it's just each generation gets better than the next.
Yeah.
I was literally sitting there last night and I told myself, okay, how do I turn it up a little bit more for next year, right? Because now that I'm, 3 years in, come November,
Jesus, you've
I
been 3 years in
I
already?
know that's what I said. Yeah, I started it. The fresh term started in January 2024, but then I was finishing the term for Sherelle Parker, before that for a year and a half. So it's
Mhm.
like now it's 3 years. I know time flies, and
Can
I
I
said,
stop you for a second as you're
yeah,
talking about that, if I may?
yeah.
I remember when you first came on for that year and a half, and folks were fussing, oh my God, he don't know what he's talking about in my ear. And I said, give him an opportunity because I was watching you. And what I saw as I watched you was you were learning. You were picking up what needed to be done. When people would call into the radio station and said, we didn't get this done, you jumped on it and you began walking and you understood. When it clicked for you was when you understood that the voice of the people matters more than anything else. And if the constituents are getting what they need when they request it, you will thrive and survive. Now, let me tell you something. If you decide, if you continue to take care of your constituents the way that you have been without apology, without making because there are other people like, well, he's making us look bad because he's doing X, da, 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 da. You could run for
Mm.
city council till Jesus come back, right? That's
Well,
people want you to give the services that is required. People want you to hear them. That's what their public servants should do. Are you always going to get it right? No. Are the
yeah.
city people always going to get it right? There's going to be times where you're going to have to tell them no, but you have to coherently tell them why you're saying no, and they will understand that. So I've
Well,
watched you grow, my brother.
I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on here, make mistakes, learn,
Yep.
grow. But also, this has been great for me to really like hear from people and really rethink things. I mean, it's been lovely listening to you and just hearing like, what's going on in Philadelphia,
Yep.
and from a different perspective. It's really grounded me, and I want to say thank you.
And I
And
watched you. I watched you.
and you know what I also will say is that I think about the fact that Philadelphia City Council, like if the resign to run rule didn't happen, we wouldn't have some really
That's what I'm saying.
amazing council members that have energy now,
Yep,
right?
yep,
You
yep.
have to have energy to do this position. I mean, I can't stress that anymore. Like I think some people, I was sitting here saying to myself yesterday, I said, okay, all right, we've proven our point that we know how to do a community festival. Great. I'm not going to rest on that laurel. We've proven our point that we now know how to follow up in our office around services, right? All right. So now, and a couple of other things like certain bills we've done, so I'm just like, all right, so now what do I need to do? And say, all right, I'm going to focus hard on doing something with our schools, right? That's,
Mhm.
I'm going to think about this plan that's going to be beyond just advocacy, beyond something, because look, Andrea, I was at, my stepson's school yesterday, and his parents said that you know, she was going to leave,
Mhm.
the city because her at the school was not as up to par as it needed to be after
Mhm.
third grade. And I'm sitting here saying, so people are really making decisions not to stay
Yes.
in Philadelphia because of schools, right? And I
Yep.
knew this, but it hit differently yesterday. Whereas like I'm always talking about it from a policy standpoint, or I'm talking
Mhm.
about it from a analytical standpoint. But I think I need to really utilize this space to do something
Mhm.
beyond
Mhm.
just policy and legislation and me commenting, telling the school district this is what they need to do, right?
Mhm.
I think we're gonna have to get ourselves really involved in the schools in our district so
Mhm.
people can want to bring their families to schools.
Yes.
And so,
So
I
I
say
don't
that.
know. I'm not sure if you are completely aware, but Cheltenham, Abington, Upper Dublin, those are the three that are buttressing against Philadelphia. They've had
Mm,
so many people come in from the city where they change addresses or they would put them on the bus. They had to hire police officers and detectives to stand outside where the buses would come. And all of these children who said they lived in the community, into Abington and Cheltenham, would get off the bus from the city and go into the school. So they would then go and knock on the doors of the homes where they're purportedly living. So it's an auntie or a cousin
wow.
or whatever else, and then they were fined if they got caught, right? But people are so desperate, Dr. Phillips, that they
Wow.
will do anything to make sure that their children are okay. David said, I raised my children outside of Philadelphia because of the poor conditions. Happens
I
all
don't
the
want,
time.
and that bothers me, right,
Mhm.
David? Like, I love your comment, but that bothers me, and I get it. But
Mhm.
I that what I need to do, or I said to myself, I am going to spend a lot more time on this personally. Or I'm going to have maybe a team member work with me, but I'm going to personally
Mhm.
spend a lot more time on it because I said I'm thinking about bringing a
Mhm.
coffee shop to our district, but I'm like that. What would that matter if there are
Mhm.
families that are still not going to choose to live in our
Mhm.
district because they're looking at the surrounding schools and they're not
Mhm.
sure that they want to send their kid to kindergarten or first grade
Right.
or so forth,
Right.
and that doesn't do anything for our economy. So now, what I'm trying to say, it is true that the state doesn't provide the resources, not because the state elected officials are not pushing for it. It's just because there's a Republican compromise, right? That has always happened.
Mhm.
And then the local government oftentimes is stuck with trying to fund so many additional things. But now I'm sitting
Mhm.
here saying to myself, you know, could we have just did that bond, that 800 million bond, $8 million bond to go towards our school facilities? These are the things I'm now like in my mind 3 years in. I'm just saying, like, I need to focus on schools, right? And I need to be the person because I work with young people. And that's how you every year you have to, if you I could easily just rest on laurels, but I think the point I was trying to make is that every year you have to find a new thing to get energized about,
Mm-hmm.
and to solve problems, because people will say, like, people will be able to see, um, that you still had an energy for something. I mean,
Yeah.
because you're right with the resign to run rule, you know, it is something that it's very positive because of the fact that we have people that don't understand that you got to be when you're in the office, you gotta have ideas, you gotta do work. You can't just sit still
Come
and, be,
on.
and
And
because people
and then
know
grouse and
you're the
complain
only
and talk about
person that people know.
that's my district. Why are you in my district? If you're a city council member, you should be able to work across all districts to help each other. Now you grousing that somebody's in your district and doing your work, but then you're not doing the work.
Right,
So this is
right,
this is the problem that the
right.
citizens of this city keep having, right? David said, Councilmember Phillips, you are so right that 800 million could have been used for schools. However, parents have to be involved.
Yeah,
Jeremy,
it's so hard because when the mayor presented it, it's like this was her idea, and she wanted council to vote on it. We still haven't voted on it, by the way.
I know. So what can we just
I mean, that's another story in
can we
itself.
discuss? It's not can we discuss? It's not been
Yeah,
a great week for the mayor, right? Because she wanted to
yeah,
pass this before the end of the year. It doesn't look like it's going to pass it before the end of the year. What
no,
was
it's
city
not.
council asking for that was
Yeah.
a sticking point with all of you?
So so let me tell you this. I'm the person that doesn't like conflict unless it's like
Mhm.
somebody is truly going against the nature of our community, where basically they're trying to do something really, really wrong to hurt our community, and I turn up hard, right? We could go to conflict, right? But my first nature and gut reaction for anybody is to figure out how to, like, work it out, have a conversation. However, this administration, which you know whatever I respect for what they decide, is the fact that in the mayor, they're sticking to what they want in this
And what
home
is it that
initiative.
they want versus what city council
So
wants?
so she ran on the idea that there needs to be economic opportunity for all. And so what her home initiative does, it brings up the average median income to around, I think, closely to $100,000, right, for families. So it's like it's up there, right? And so what that does is that it gives more people an opportunity to access. It's anywhere. It depends what the
Which
program
was
is.
supposed to
Does
really
it?
be for people who
Yeah,
couldn't afford housing.
it's anywhere between 70, $100,000, 75 average family in home income. It's going up. So it gives more people access to people, for folks like that live in our district who are homeowners and stuff like that. And so that was her thing. She said that a lot of folks who even are homeowners who have a little bit of money, they can't even fix their homes, right? And they're having a hard time to fix their
Which
homes,
is true, right? Mhm.
access home. So we're changing. So for me, I'm like, you know what? I get it only because the fact that, like, there are people in our district who've always wanted access to this money, and they can't. Now here's where the situation is, where I understand the other side, yet it's like trying to figure out how to make their part work. So Jamie Gaudier and about 8 other members of Philadelphia City Council, she may actually have more votes than that, right? Are actually interested in requiring that the home initiative in its first year, 30% of the home funding has to be prioritized for folks who are in the low income bracket. I'm talking about
Right.
between $30,000 a year, 50,000. Like, it has to be
Mhm.
deeply affordable for individuals who basically are struggling and have no means to buy a house, right?
Right.
At all.
Right.
And so we can.
But I thought that this affordable housing, this extra 30,000 affordable housing was going to impact those people, right? The ones who can't afford that $30,000 to $50,000 a year. And there are quite
Yeah.
a few people in Philadelphia that are at that income range that cannot afford a house. Is that not what the mayor and her team are doing?
Yeah, so that's what the argument is. The argument is that based off of their analysis, these people are still going to get access to affordable luxury homes, the opportunity to fix their homes. However, what Jamie Gadier and the other members of the council want, they want that in writing. That it's going to be like, so there's no blurred lines that
Mm-hmm.
at least 30% of these individuals are going to get access. Like, so
Oh, you know these.
when the application opens, we can quantify that 30% of people in a certain income bracket received access to these funds.
And they're saying
And
no. Are they
they're
saying
drawing
no? They're
and
not
they're
doing it
drawing
in
a line.
writing.
They're drawing a
They,
line. They're
they
drawing a line.
draw the line.
They're drawing a line. They're saying it's already going to get done, and we're
No,
not going to
no.
confuse
If it's
people. And I
not
get
in
it.
writing, if but
I
we've
guess.
learned this. Hold on.
Go
We've
ahead. Go
learned this from the
ahead.
76 arena. If the issue's not in
Yeah,
writing, they can change. They can change their mind and do it. So
that's
why
very
is it
true.
so
That's
difficult
very
to put
true.
it in
That part
writing?
is true. Yeah, and that part So this is where I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna lose sleep, right? I'm gonna figure this out with you, right? Like, I guess I understand their vantage point, and that's why it took me a while to really
What
understand
is
it.
their vantage point?
Here's
Wait,
their
wait,
point,
wait.
and this is the point is that if you do that, it's going to cause confusion. I think for people who are like in a certain income background and beyond, they're like the first. Now maybe I'm not going to get it. I'm going to be held back because we got to wait for certain people to get the funds first. They want it to be equal, so the folks are when they're applying they're not feeling like they're waiting in a line before the other people get it. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. Yet at the same time, I'm like, can y'all just get to a table and figure this out? So that's who I am. I'm with you about the idea of giving access to everyone in the city. Well, not access to everyone. You can't give it to the rich people in the city, but access to middle neighborhoods, right? I'm with you. Yet I just want them to figure it out and get along because right now we it's not moving nowhere. I mean, it's not moving, and so we're gonna have to figure it out. We have to figure it out.
If the median income is moved up to $100,000, a lot more people with means will be able to put money down to get these affordable housing, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
how the wealthy keeps getting wealthier, right? There are people that live in this city that own blocks and blocks and blocks and blocks of real estate as a direct result of being a part of some of these deals. And as Shakila Strawberry says, if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. So then what's the issue with putting it in writing? Sir, you're going to do more than slap your hands on the thing.
Now, this is the part that bewilders me. I mean, I think something could be in writing. I don't know what that is that they could decide. I think part of it, I mean, one of the parts that could be in writing is like, if you don't want to prioritize, you could say we are committed to making sure that at least this percentage amount of funds go towards the extremely, low income individuals in our city.
Right. Shakila says,
I think that's a compromise.
Right.
What Jamie wants is she says prioritize them. Okay, if you don't want to prioritize them, at least you could say that somewhere along the lines in the application process, we're going to be looking out to make sure that extremely affordable people are accessing certain funds, right? And then the rest of the city that, it is middle neighborhoods, they can access it as well. But we're not going to say prioritize them first, over others. We're going to just make sure there's a commitment in writing that we say is going to go towards this. To them, they're saying it's already automatically going to happen that way.
No, we know better.
Based off of the figures in the city of Philadelphia.
If this is where it doesn't exist.
Well, this is where the line is, and I don't know where to be because I mean, I know where to be only because their argument is actually helping those in our district. So it's not like I can't. I'm not going to. My responsibility is to make sure that folks in our district have opportunities. So I couldn't be on Jamie's side, as a result. But I do understand her being the fact that she is in one of the poorest districts in the city of Philadelphia, right? She represents people in that area. I understand what she's saying, right? And now I'm like, okay, let's see how we can work it out. But they have to work it out because the line has been drawn all the way, Andre, all the way.
Oh, I see. I see. I have never seen city council push back like this on the administration. This new class of you all is starting to really find your voices. Now,
Yeah.
Shakila says, and if they can, can they really afford the home with $30,000 in income? This is what needs to be asked. And so you build homes. See, everybody needs a modicum of decency. They need to be able to live somewhere, keep a roof over their heads. So maybe you won't build homes that are $700,000, but you build homes that get $100 and some $1,000, and then the city offsets with that money that they have to help those folks by making it more affordable for them to pay for their homes. We have to stop. We've seen people make $45,000 a year that have been able to manage and do what they need to do to keep a roof over their heads and keep a mortgage if we give them the leg up to help them do so. We just cannot, because if what you're saying to me is actually what's happening, now you're gonna make me go do some digging and research as always.
I'm going to give you the exact numbers
Thank you.
because I'm telling you, this is what's going on. This is what's going on. The administration, rightfully so, and I agree with this part. We got to protect our middle neighborhoods, right? Because people up at 191 West Oak Lane, they're on fixed incomes, they make a little bit more money than some of the other folks, but it's not like Chestnut Hill money, or it's not like
Right.
it's not like.
And I understand that part too. So, but can we do both and? Can we help the folks who are making $100,000 a year?
And that's the part that I feel like can really be discussed. I said you can. But the problem is that we have to let some things go. Yes, Jamie is out here pushing and fighting, publicly. Sometimes you just gotta let people win a little bit just so you could achieve your goal. And because and also what she's saying technically is not necessarily outwardly like dead wrong. What she's saying is that she agrees with the plan. She wants to do the $800 million, right? She just wants to make sure that communities, have certain parts of the communities have access. How do you do that? You got to actually sit down and meet and talk about that with that person. That person may not get fully what they want, but as long as you explain, it's not just Jamie, it's Rue Landau, it's Ketsi Lazada, right? It's Nicholas O'Rourke, Kendra Brooks, I'm trying to think, Mark Squilla, right?
Wow.
There's a few, and honestly, there's some folks who didn't sign on to this letter that went out demanding this from the mayor, right? Because there was a letter that went out demanding this type of accountability from the mayors and her administration. There's other members who also agree with them too. They just not saying it. Our council president is going to make sure he's listening to the members as well. So
because he's responsible for the members.
Yeah,
he's the head of them, and so he has to make sure he upholds whatever it is that the membership wants within reason, right?
Right.
Let's talk about this DEI thing.
Yeah. Tell me what you've been hearing.
You playing with me, right?
I know you've been here, but I want to hear from your perspective. What is happening? Because I can tell you what's happening right now.
Tell us what's happening in city council.
So we have the city of Philadelphia recently had a potential lawsuit on hands yet again. I don't know where these all potential lawsuits come up, but they're always coming up, and because we always have potential lawsuit, to be honest with you, but we raise flags around it quickly. So diversity, equity, and inclusion is something that our city solicitor raised as there was a Supreme Court ruling saying that you can't necessarily have quotas available for minority groups or anybody, right? Just for for preference. When it comes to city research, local government, or any applications, whatever they might be. So the city solicitor read it as like, hey, we have to do away with some of our programs that have preference, which included making sure that 35%, I believe, of minority contracts in the city of Philadelphia goes to Black, brown people, and folks with disabilities. And so now we're at a point where the mayor and administration decided that they're going to change the language for applications to be small and local for contractors. And so um, the point of the matter is this: a lot of people are upset because they believe that folks should be fighting against Donald Trump, and not just advocating. Not just changing things or submitting to him. Yet it wasn't just the city solicitor from what I heard, but there was other lawyers, right, who also were talking to the mayor about how this could cost the city of Philadelphia millions of dollars, if not billion, because of through lawsuits. And it's been precedent supposedly in Georgia and other places, Atlanta, where has happened. That
So
part I
the
didn't
so
research,
the
but
Supreme Court ruling was about schools, was not
mm,
about DEI, in the sense that, and it was not the Supreme Court that sued the city. It was an organization that sued the city, the same organization that was suing cities all around the country. Philadelphia is the one that capitulated, and that's
mhm.
the word everybody's using. And so it's been a fight. If you were sitting behind closed doors like I have been and watching Joanne Bell, Leslie Renee Morant, and I mean, Leslie is a lawyer and she's a constitutional lawyer. So she's claiming that Renee Garcia, who is the lawyer for the city, lied, absolutely lied, and she put out precedents around why she was lying, right? Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah, it's getting ugly, and as a direct result of this thing that happened where they decided that they were going to drop because they feel like um they didn't have a choice. Leslie says they absolutely had a choice. They did not have to do this. And as a direct result of it happening, people are now being fired left and right from contracting jobs that are minorities. Because now it's telling them they do not have to hire minorities. The white folks are running around saying we come to Philly because they're not mandated, right? So this is how Black businesses were able to get a small foothold to grow and to thrive. They're losing their jobs left and right in the last few days. Contractors are called companies saying, we don't need you anymore. We've decided to go in another direction. And
Phew.
when Renee Garcia was asked what happens when that happens to people, she said, "Oh well, they can file a claim with the Human Relations Commission." And I'm going to
Yeah,
quote
and
Joanne
so
Bell,
so so
tone
so
deaf.
so so here is the problem that I do have. I will tell you that how they rolled this out in particular was, I don't think, was done very well. Now, to be honest with you, I'm not a part of the administration, so I'm not sure how
But were you
you.
aware? Was city council members
No,
aware?
no, no, we weren't. We weren't. None of us were aware of this decision before it was made. Not one of us. And I mean that wholeheartedly, honestly. I mean, I don't even think council president. I mean, I think he might have been more aware than most people, of course, right away. But the rest of us, no. I talked around everybody. We found out basically the same time that the public found out about this, publicly. So the reality is this is truly their decision. When you did, these are the power. This is the power you give to the administration and mayor. Like when you make your votes, right? They have this power to do that. Um, I'm sure some city council members right now maybe think of what they can do as well. But right now, this is administration power,
Yeah.
and led by the city solicitor. Right? To be honest with you, it's led by the city solicitor. Um, so I'm at a point
The
now
same city
where
solicitor that uh, uh, said that, small businesses, shouldn't have to pay taxes up until $100,000. She took that away from them.
And you know what? And we figured that out on city council. Mike Driscoll yesterday introduced. It was city council who figured out how to solve a problem. Mike Driscoll. I don't think we fully solved it, but we solved half of the problem that she caused with that. I mean, I'm older. I shouldn't say it like that. Lord Jesus.
No, you
But
spoke.
no, I'm saying like she
You
said.
spoke
Look,
truth, right?
I
Because
mean,
she is
I mean,
causing, that city solicitor is causing a whole lot of hell for the mayor. It is now national news. The ACLU said, take our names out of your mouth. We did not, the mayor and her team did not meet with us. They did not do this. They did not do that. It is a firestorm that's only going to get worse as more and more small business owners are being told, we no longer want to contract with you. We don't have to contract with you.
But here's what I will say, which is kind of bothered me about the whole situation. The solicitor's office, they represent city council as well, right?
That was going to be my next question to you.
And so you would think that the solicitor will also have said, "Hey, Mayor, I also need to talk to city council because they represent us too before this decision is made." What I mean? Like, not that technically that we could have made it, we could at least knew about it so that when our neighbors who are looking at us, right, as the problem, like, or maybe thinking we had something to do with this decision. I think people are starting to slowly realize that we had nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it would have been nice to weigh in, on this before this decision was made.
Well, because this is now a firestorm. You need to be happy at city council that many of you did not know.
Yeah, I agree because what I would have had to say we can't do. I would have had to say that we got to start analyzing how we're going to roll this out.
Yeah,
I mean, small local. I think that I believe that the mayor is going to be committed to making sure that small and local means black and brown. But it changes things.
But remember when it first came out, they were like, we didn't want to draw the Trump administration's attention to us. And, we're just following what the Supreme Court said. This was not a Supreme Court case. I need people to understand that part, which is why I keep telling you all, being ignorant of things around you is a dangerous position to be in, because a lot of people were soaking it up and believing everything that was said. And there were folks in front of this. Joanne Bell is on a tear. That woman worked her behind off to get this mayor into office, and she is on a complete tear. Like, this is wrong.
Really? I need to call Joanne. You know what? That's probably why
she even called into question whether this mayor should still be mayor. Publicly, she called into question whether the mayor should still be mayor. It is just because she said
it impacts people like Joanne Bell, who's been working in the city for a long time. Among some of the people that minority folks that she works with. I totally understand why she's concerned about it. The problem is that now the mayor is right about this. The percentages weren't working to begin with.
Absolutely. But there were people behind the scenes asking, what are you doing, knowing that it's not working? Right? It hasn't been working for 40 damn years. What were you doing? Even before the Trump administration and these companies started suing, Philadelphia is dead last of major cities around minority hiring. So we have a problem here.
I didn't think about it that way. That's a great point. That's a great point. What I will tell you is this, that I'm going to work with them to make sure that they keep their word around this. It's so interesting that these are the things. So let me tell you something. The problem with the city of Philadelphia is that I found myself as a council member feeling like I have to do other people's jobs because they can't think in a way that is thoughtful, caring, or even just innovative. Mm-hmm. And so we're not I don't know how the departments that have been responsible for giving out these contracts, procurement is making they're analyzing that minority businesses all these years we're not getting these contracts at the percentage level that they should. Mm-hmm. What you mean to tell me that you could not have figured out how to promote, how to organize how to get innovative to make sure that that was working. And now we're in a situation where it wasn't working. Now we have to define how we're going to make it work under small and local, right? So now they're still in a situation where they have to figure this out. You know, I, I just feel like I said, you know, I understand where the mayor's coming from, where we're not trying to get this lawsuit, so that we had to go small local. But
Okay,
what I don't
okay,
understand,
okay. But again, I'm
but what
telling
I,
you, there's so many states that pushed back.
but they
Philadelphia
lost,
was the
right, Andrea? But they lost that money, right? They lost money. They lost, were
listen,
they?
for every action that you take, there is a risk. They've pushed back and the courts have sided with them. So for every action, there's a risk. Yes, they've lost some money. So are we going to throw a whole group of people under the bus as a direct result of this? Yo, yo. It just there is something completely missing here,
So the
right?
courts. So that's the part I'm going to research. The court
Yeah,
side of it.
you have to
That's
go to
excellent.
Leslie Renee's page. She's a constitution lawyer, and she
Hmm.
will tell you everything that is going on there. Just Leslie Renee. Just look up Leslie Renee and start reading, and then research the things that she's talking about, and read all that she's spoken of. It is, and because of her, in very large part, she wrote it in such a language that even a fourth grader could understand. Folks were like, "Wait, we didn't have to do this. This was not a Supreme Court case. What is happening here? What is
Yeah,
happening
I,
here?"
I will personally say that I'm working on my relationship with our city solicitor. There's been so many things that I've always questioned, you know, with the decision making. I'm constantly trying to. There's it's I will say that, like, you know, she's conservative in some capacity, right? And a lot of things, even when it comes to the laws that we're trying to pass out of city council, it's conservative to the point where you,
Conservative. Come on,
well,
say
that's the
it.
best way. Whereas, like, you don't want to go out, you don't want to go to, you don't want to go to court, right? You don't want to
Mm-hmm.
go to court. It's like on anything, and so you
Mm-hmm.
make then you get more worried. Like,
Mm-hmm.
are you nervous? Like, I mean, I'm like, are you nervous about going to court? Or are you just nervous about fighting? Like, what is it? Because sometimes everything could be challenged. Like any law you put
Absolutely.
together could be challenged.
Right.
You
Right.
know. So
Right.
I mean, I will say that. And so I mean, my my thought process is this: whatever you do, right, administration, you better make sure that black and brown folks, you know, are getting these contracts. At, at this point, they need to get a contract
Well, now, well, now,
at a
well,
higher level than a percentage.
right. That well, now they're
There's a
talking
really
about
important
a
point,
task force. What is the
right?
task force? What is the mandate to the task force? When do we get the data from that? How do we navigate
Yeah,
through that to make sure that what the task force is doing is actually bringing? When we're hearing firsthand information every day, we
yeah,
hear firsthand information of black small businesses who are being let go because the contractors had to have a 10% minority participation, 20% minority participation in the last few days alone. Many of them have been told, "Oh, you know what? Since the mayor changed the law, then we just don't have to do anything about it. So we no longer need your services." So 100% of the money goes to those businesses versus to the small black owned business that they had to contract with to get the contract here in the city of Philadelphia. Does that make sense?
yeah. It does. It makes a lot of sense. And I want to. Can I just bring up something before we go? That last Thursday when I wasn't on, I did introduce a bill that I thought was, you know, really hopefully helpful to residents. So I introduced a bill called the Non-Resident Landlord Accountability Ordinance. What it does, it ensures that property owners in Philadelphia, especially those who do not live at their rental property, are reachable, responsible, and accountable for the
Mhm,
condition and management of their properties.
mhm,
So the problem is that across the city, residents and city departments, they struggle to contact landlords who do not live in or near the properties they own. So there's a delayed enforcement when landlords cannot be reached for like quota violations, unsafe conditions, blight persistence. It basically undermines the neighbor's stability. What my bill does is it requires verifiable contact information for
The
every
landlord.
licensed property.
Mm-hmm.
And it also mandates that if a landlord doesn't live on the property, they or some sort of agent has
Mm-hmm.
to operate the business, has to be available, right? To contact, and when since they're not around.
Mm-hmm.
And then also we're going to make sure that there's fines available for landlords who don't provide verifiable contact information. So there's going to be
Mm-hmm.
a $500 fine up to $1,000 per day fine, and a potential suspension of their rental license for non-compliance with, meaning that we can't reach you. We can't. Too many landlords in the
Mm-hmm.
city of Philadelphia are leaving these properties. It could be land, it could be, rent, a building, and you're trying to contact them about all of these unsafe conditions, and you're nowhere to be found. And we're finding them, and nothing's getting done. And we
Right.
technically, from a legal standpoint, can't take ownership from them. And it takes too long to fix. Get after a certain while, they have to get in so many violations in order for them to go to sheriff's sale. And then sometimes they pay their taxes, so it's so complicated. Now we just got to find a way to make sure that all landlords in the city of Philadelphia have contact information where we can contact them.
That's
So
beautiful because it's terrible.
it's
It's terrible
terrible.
what's happening with some of the residents and can't get anything. They want
Yeah,
their rent, but they can't get anything fixed on the property.
yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
Jesus, a
so
mess.
why did someone just write? I'm over here talking about landlord accountability. Someone writing. I just noticed that I haven't noticed the chat, but someone just said, did the speed limit get changed from 25 miles per hour?
Did they
And I'm
really?
like, come on. To be honest with you, I thought about it, and I'm still not done. I'm gonna wait for this next 6 months to go through. I'm not done with that. I want to see how this goes. See if we get used to it,
Yeah.
because it
Well,
takes a while
how
to
you
change.
get used to 25 miles an hour?
I know,
It's
but
ridiculous.
I honestly was thinking, can we do 30 miles? Can we do 35? Right? Because that gets people up to 10 miles. You can do if you do 30 miles, you can really technically go 40. If you do, I feel like 35 is comfortable because now I technically drive 35 miles per hour on Broad Street,
Mm-hmm.
35, 40. I ain't driving 45, 50. I mean, I could used to when I was in a hurry, yes. But 35 is comfortable, but I
Yeah.
have to really analyze. A lot of folks the problem is that people need to realize that a lot of people have experienced death.
Yes.
I mean, serious
Agreed.
accidents as
Yeah.
well on Broad
Yeah.
Street, and that's the reason why this
Mm-hmm.
legislation came about from the mayor.
Boy, you had a whole
Yeah,
lot to discuss
we
today.
got a lot
Thank you
going
much.
on.
Thank you so much, my
Thank you.
brother. I
All
really
right,
appreciate it. We'll
all right.
talk soon.
Appreciate you.
All
Talk
right.
to you. Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.
Bye-bye. Whoo. So just based on the conversation I'm having with Councilmember Phillips about what happened this week, a lot of the council members aren't even fully aware of what is going on. They're repeating what they're being told, but we need to do a little bit more research around why this was so problematic in the city around the DEI issue. Whoo. Oh my God. All right, let me let State Rep Darisha Parker in. Sorry for the delay, honey. We had a lot of things talking about.
I ain't say a word. I already know. I already know the deal. Listen, it's Friday. Good morning to everybody. I'm glad to be seen versus being viewed.
Mm-hmm.
And you see my face as I can see. Oh, good Lord. Pale, good, gosh, doggone it. I'm gonna have everybody laughing. Let me tell you how real we keep it on these airwaves. Gotta be a safe legislator, but guess what? I got my bag because the face will be beat. Not at a traffic light, but it will be beat soon.
Are you on your way up to Harrisburg?
Absolutely not. Come on, it's Friday. You're not gonna get my hair did, child. Waiting to get.
You're so crazy. You were so crazy. Let me ask you. The budget was passed. Let's talk about that at the state level.
Jesus. Oh Lord. Everybody knows it's good, but there's downsides to that. The mere fact that it was passed. The sad thing to you and many others that are not going to be happy is we still do not have mass transit funding. So yeah, it's not funded. And we are in a shamble because you got to figure out how you're going to fund something that everybody needs. And this is the world that I deal with all of the time when we're talking about the craziness of this world. But I don't apologize. I just keep it 100 with people. And we got to figure that part out. And that's where we are. I mean, sadly, there's a lot of businesses, or not businesses, but nonprofits that took a major hit because of the delays. Child care providers, major hit because of the delays and payments, and trying to figure as it relates to next year how we can do things district. And I'll keep it 100 with you. We got to flip more seats in the House and the Senate. And I know people don't want to always think things are political, but when you're talking about what I'm talking about, everything is political. And that's where we are.
So based on this most recent election, I think you're going to flip more states in the House and the Senate. You're going.
Yeah, that's the affirmation that I need people to hear and understand. And don't be discouraged. Don't be upset. Just fight. And you got to have a plan, and you got to fight. And the way you fight is by voting. And the other side of fighting is voter education, civics, learning, making sure we work as a team. With these mail-in ballots, it was so many mail-in ballots this time that came back. Make sure you have Commissioner Sabir on that came back unsigned. That means they don't count. And I guess that's the part of with Commissioner Sabir that we could be working on before. If they're not signed, what's the window to get in touch with them to get them signed? And I don't know all the legality. That's not my wheelhouse, but I don't mind working with a team. I know it's going to be hard for me next year because I'm running. So I don't want people to make it seem like it's, I'm just going to call all the people in the 190 district that did not sign. Well, I got to understand what's the legal side of that, because, that's what I want to do. And that's where we are.
Okay. You went off camera, but I guess you're getting that hair done did.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add to the discussion for today?
Yes, I just want to let everyone know I'm very happy. Happy Friday. Because of our 1-seat majority, today is a groundbreaking ceremony in Germantown. It's called the Hollow. Happy Hollow, everybody. Happy Hollow. $1.5 million was secure, a groundbreaking ceremony at 1 p.m. Shout out to Chairman Harris. Shout out to Senator Street. I know Mayor Parker, Councilmember Bass, Parks and Rec, community leaders. This is a long time coming. This is what we talk about. You had celebrities like Rasheed Wallace. You had a lot that played basketball there. So we have well-known names. And guess what? We are doing something historic as far as doing what I committed to as your representative, representing an African-American area and neighborhood, making sure I do the fruits of all of the patience and labor, and making sure we do what? Restore and repair, and thanks to rebuild, because this is what we're doing, is making sure this is up and running. And making sure it looks better.
I am not familiar with the Hollow.
Happy Hollow is one of the oldest recreation centers in our region, and it's in Germantown, located on Wayne Avenue. And I'm excited. I look kind of pale now because my face isn't beat, but I'm extremely happy. My voice is always raspy because I'm yelling and screaming for us. And I just want to say to everybody, 1 o'clock today, I pray the liquid sunshine does not happen, because I don't want my stylist to be upset because of all of her work. But I also want the people to be out there, so we don't, just to be there, just to understand. If you don't make it, I know we're going to be showing it and doing things live so people can see. But this is one of many other projects that I'm working on. I'm also working with the United Tennis Association, because above the recreation center there's a tennis court, so I'm going to be working with them so we can put funds there and to get that up and running and do what we need to do. Listen, when a community speaks, your representatives like me listen, and we do what we have to do to get things done.
Audrey, Wayne Avenue. Oh, they all knew Wayne Avenue. I just never heard of Happy Hour. I have never heard of Happy Hour.
It's okay.
But thank you, my sister. Go on and get your hair done because I know you in the chair. Happy Friday.
I love you.
Love
Happy
you too,
Friday.
honey.
Call me later.
Okay. All right. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, y'all. This was quite a show. There were a lot of comments on here. Whoo, Jesus, you all were talking. There are 99 plus comments on here, so I appreciate all of your comments. The dialogue that you've been having with us around everything that's happened in the city this week. It's been a busy week in the city of Philadelphia in the news. The Philadelphia Inquirer is having themselves a good time around all of it, reporting what's been going on. But I need you all, when you see these things in the news, to do your own research, to ask your own questions, to speak to people who are very familiar with what's happening, and can answer the questions succinctly, can say, this is case law, this is not case law. No more can we sit around and say, well, they said that, so it must be true. You have to do your research, right? And it's hard to keep up with all of it. Auntie says, wait, the city solicitor is Hispanic. A Black woman and a Hispanic woman sold Philadelphia minority businesses down the river. I will not publicly say how folks describe the city solicitor. They believe she is incredibly conservative, that she becomes annoyed when asked the hard questions. And, I don't know what to tell you, but it's all coming out. It's all coming out in the wash. And they believe that the mayor believed what she was saying to her, that this is what's going on. And so now they're here. Now they're here in this scenario. So they have to figure out what's going on. But there are other lawyers who are pushing back. And I mean pushing back hard, right? The Black business owners are calling, the African American Chamber of Commerce. They're their members that are losing their jobs. And for Garcia to say, if the minority businesses let go, then they can file with the Human Relations Commission. Yeah, ma'am, that could take years. What does that do? What gap stops do you have in place to make sure that those businesses are still supported? Because that's what you're saying. That even though you dropped this case, even though you allowed this case to, you capitulated. We're going to keep saying capitulated because there are many cities and states that did not. Even though you said, okay, we just don't want the federal government to come off there so we can lose billions and billions of dollars. What were the gap stops? You have a whole task force now. What is that task force going to do? What are the stop gaps for the people not to lose their jobs? I'm telling folks to file a complaint with the Human Relations Commission is and I'm going to quote Joanne Bell, the most tone-deaf thing I'd heard anybody say in a long time. Andrea says the lawyer talks to people like they're stupid, and if you don't push back. Wow. Crazy. All right, y'all. It's Friday. Thanksgiving is next week, Thursday. I am going to take some privilege and be off on Wednesday and Friday of next week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, so I can get my family together. So you'll see me for Monday and Tuesday, unless there's some breaking news, then I'll be on Wednesday. But I want to thank you all. Love you all dearly. Thank you for continuing to research. This group that sits here and listens every day. You've been asked to research and you've been researching, and I'm incredibly proud of what you've come up with as a direct result of it, that you're not just taking one person's word. Don't even take my word for it, right? If I say something to you, because I could be wrong. If I say something to you and it doesn't sound right, go do your own research. That's why we have David Alexander Jenkins on. All of us here have been asked to do our research, and so we can get the job done. This episode, Joanne says, some folks just have a job and don't want to work. This episode of Mornings with Mova is officially over. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders. I'll see you when I see you. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye. Happy Friday.